Greetings, listeners, and welcome to On the Spectrum podcast, a show that explores the many complexities and diversities of being on the spectrum. We are your hosts, David and Lorena.
Hello.
So we are joined today by John and Lucy. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries.
Would you like to introduce yourselves for our listeners to know who you are and why you're here today?
Okay, shall I go first? My name's Lucy and I am the mum of a lovely young man called Lawrence who attends the Loddon School.
Mm-hmm.
I'm John and I'm the father of the same child. Thankfully.
That conversation for another podcast. Right, guys. So we're going to talk today about your experience as parents having an autistic child.
Yep.
And we would like you to talk... to explain to us what was your experience before knowing that Lawrence was autistic, what happened when the diagnosis arrives, and everything that comes after. So we'll pop some questions, but please feel free to talk about that. Okay. As much as you want, as much as you feel like talking and sharing.
Yes,
so
that won't be a problem.
So which ones were the first red lights or red flags that you saw in Lawrence to say something is different here, if you remember?
I mean, I think it's, well, I don't know about Lou, but it's quite tricky because, you know, Lawrence is, was our first child, but so we didn't really have a frame to compare against. So he just seemed like a naturally sort of bright, sort of fun child. He was quite quiet around other children. But it was only when he went to pre-prep that the differences really stood out. I mean, before that, you were kind of looked at him and went, okay, there might be the odd little thing that's different, but I don't think there was anything major that you would say was a red flag.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know from speaking to other parents of young people with autism, they'll sort of say, there were a lot of issues around sleep, or there were a lot of issues around things like feeding and stuff like that. We never had that with Lolly. But I think it was as soon as he started to move more, like John said, into social circles. So there were a few red flags that came up for us when he was attending nursery. Lolly went straight from crawling to walking. So he didn't, from commando crawling to walking. So he did that whole sort of lying on his tummy, dragging himself along by his elbows. And then he walked, but he walked much later than other children. And I mean, part of my background was back in the midst of time, I trained as a teacher and I trained as my area of interest was autism. So I was kind of thinking, is there something here? You know, he'd cry when other children cried, more above and beyond. And, you know, he would react really badly to loud sounds, and I got told, no, you've got a lovely, bright, beautiful child, don't worry about it. I think there was a lot in the news at that point in time as well about people being hyper focused on autism, and I think in those first couple of years, sometimes when we did raise concerns, it was dismissed, but it definitely became really prevalent when he went to pre-prep.
Yeah, because suddenly I think at that point with the child, like maybe even in a small group you can sort of accept, but then, you know, I mean, the school actually invited Lou in to actually observe him and his interactions. Yeah. And I think, you know, and Lou phoned me up and she's just like, oh my God, it's not just a little bit different, it's massively different. And I mean, they were actually quite supportive in that respect. They kind of went, guys, there is something seriously amiss, you need to start investigating it. Yeah. And obviously at that point you went into the... into
the joy, which is the system. The situation that John was explaining there was I was asked to go in and watch him in circle time when they were having story at the end of the day, and there was a class, the two classes came together. There were 30 children sat on the carpet listening to the teacher, and there were 29 children facing the front and attending to what the teacher was saying, and there was one child facing the back of the classroom bouncing up and down on his knees and flapping, and that was Lolly. And that was just we're in a different realm here. This isn't just a bit of inattentiveness or, you know, being just a little bit different. There is something here.
I mean because also I think there is that thing where, you know, as a very young person, like he learned to read really quickly, he learned his numbers really quickly. So you just sort of kind of went, well, maybe he's just a bit bookish, you know. And I think that also somewhat masks it, you know. Yeah. You got two people who are sort of like, you know, Lou and I are relatively smart, But I'll say relatively, but that's about it. But so you kind of went, well, okay, this is fun. We're both quite sort of quiet. We're both, and you just went, he's just us.
Yeah.
So you don't really see it, and I think that's how so many probably children slip through, because you are just kind of going, oh, cool, we've got a booky child. We're away.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like I guess that you need to tick certain boxes, and when those boxes are not ticked as expected, it becomes more difficult. And even for others, when but he doesn't do such and such and such, and then I think probably is the conversation that we had with Daniel last week, like, oh, but you don't look autistic, and then because he tends to joke in terms of like, oh, do you want me to do this, and this? So I tick all your boxes, and then in your head, I am autistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it was in that line of because it's not always expected. They weren't sure. And
well, exactly. I mean, Lowell, even now, is incredibly affectionate. He wants to hug. He wants to squeeze.
Oh, yeah.
So that.
Oh, yes. We love engaging with him. Yeah.
You know, because that's the typical thing of like, you know, oh, you got a baby that doesn't want to be hugged. Ah, right, they're autistic. So you go, well, I've got a baby that loves to be hugged.
Yeah, I've got a baby who wants to be with people, who makes eye contact, who, you know, craves affection. And it was that whole thing about, you know, we would see healthcare professionals who would say, oh my gosh, look at this gorgeous relationship you've got with your baby, with your toddler, to both of us. He loves you, you love him. Oh, you know, he's not met that milestone, but maybe he's just off his game today. You know, it was almost as if the fact that Lolly didn't, you know, wasn't sort of
you're not ticking those boxes.
Yeah, you're not ticking those boxes. So other things kind of got passed over that actually in hindsight now, looking back, would have been really clear indicators that he was on the spectrum.
Yeah. So, but you've got all that evidence of him, like you said, counting and using all these other things are kind of like making you think, oh, well, developing is developmental stages there. So
he learned to count 11 to 20 in 2 days in France while we were on holiday. We were just bouncing him. You know, because he liked to be bounced, they like to be thrown in the air.
Knackering. Sure.
The shoulders for that. But we used to count, and then you get bored counting 1 to 10. So eventually he started going, well, let's do 11 to 20. And he worked it out so fast.
Really great.
We were just like, oh, cool. Yeah. But that's the thing. That's the thing where you just go, that masks so many other things, because still with autism, you still have that thing of, they're going to be a bit, they're not going to be as smart, they're not going to be on the ball, all that kind of stuff. So you just go, everything becomes almost like a reason not to believe it. And then also there is that point of, I'm sure, you know, everybody hopes that their child is normal. So you are a lot of the time looking for reasons for them to be normal. So you kind of, as you say with the healthcare professionals, you kind of look at it and go, maybe they'll do that later, or. And I think that's just the way it is. Yeah,
I think, you know, especially as I'd sort of worked with young people with autism for a couple of years, I knew the challenges that young people with autism can face. So, as John said, you're kind of, when you get that token reassurance from a healthcare professional, just, you know, it's all right, don't worry about it. You do tend to think, okay, because part of you does think, actually, I'm aware of some of the challenges that can come up for young people and their parents in the future. Phew, that's not going to be us. And actually, I think to have been a little bit more holistic and to have had people willing to experience and investigate things for us would have been more helpful. And hopefully that's the way the healthcare system is going now, but it certainly wasn't our experience.
No. I mean, it just is what it is.
You know, I guess, like, from a parent point of view, I think we all are in that position. Are you like you always think you expect that everything is okay, and then when you have contact with autistic children, as we do, and then you become a parent, it's something like you start looking. And I had that conversation with people at Loddon. Like, they start looking at, is he looking at me? Is he not looking at me? Is he talking? Is he not talking? Is he doing? Is he not doing? Because you know things and how things are, and then is that kind of worry. And I think even when you don't want to, you do it, and it's like something you kind of stop yourself
and also
doing.
Also sometimes, like, you know, there is that thing, you know, with the healthcare professional, you defer to somebody else's expertise. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be that
making that judgment.
You don't want to be,
you don't want to be that
self-diagnosing and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. So you do defer, and you know that causes a lot of issues in lots of other ways. But
yeah, I was just laughing then because you said you don't want to be that pushy parent, and I'm sure we'll come on to the fact that now we are those
horrible.
pushy parents. But that's something that
Doesn't that come with the territory? Do you find you have to advocate a lot as a result of him not being able to express his needs?
Well, there is that, but also, we'll come on to it. But I mean, the system is set up against you.
Right.
You have to be horrible. It's not to the likes of you, but to the system. The system is geared against you. The moment you say I can do something, they'll go great. Off you go.
I see.
But to get him into Loddon, to get him the things that have been required, requires so much effort,
time, knowledge.
Yeah.
You have to, as you said, advocate's a really good word, but it's almost too small a word for what you have to become. You have to become, an expert on legalese and what your child's entitled to. You have to become an expert on the social care system. You have to become an expert on the healthcare system. You have to
be a project manager.
You have to be a project manager.
It's like, I mean, you've got to be ruthless. You have to push and push and push. You've got to document. You make sure you don't leave any gaps.
Okay.
And it's incredibly tiring. I mean, I think, we're lucky in the fact that it sounds terrible, but, we're not together. But it meant we almost had like a separate ability to, especially when Lowell was very young, he's tremendously hard work. Mm-hmm. So Lou and Russ did all that work. And then when it came to forcing stuff down the road, that's my job. My job is to harass people.
I was thinking,
remind them that you're there. I suppose, because they will.
I mean, to such an extent that I'm fairly sure that if I was to walk into Wokingham, they would
on a board somewhere.
I see.
Yeah,
but like you said you had to be ruthless. So
you phone up every week. You chase meetings. You everything has to be documented, and that's fine if you've got the capacity. But we had the capacity because we could split. And if I couldn't do it, Lou could pick it up.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's not fair. That's not fair the way the system works.
I think I was thinking when we were sort of talking about coming here, and I was thinking how I would describe the way that John and I sort of parent Lolly, because as John said, we're not together, but what we are is a partnership. But then I started thinking, actually, what we are is a small business, because we're not a partnership, we're a small business, because there's John and I, and we have an army of people behind us that support us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that maybe is a challenge for a lot of parents when they discover that their young people have these additional needs, which are going to make life's journey a bit more difficult. They really need that cocoon of supportive people around them. They really need there to be that small business, and that small business is invested in your child. And we are fortunate that we are the sorts of people that can do that sort of thing, and we're supported by a family that can do that sort of thing. Yeah. Not everyone is, but I would encourage parents who find themselves in a similar position to try and find those people, because you're really going to need them.
I attended the other day a workshop with a mum that is a parent carer. She has a kid, it's Rachel Wright, she has a podcast, hopefully we will invite her. She was lovely, she speaks really clear, but it's exactly what you are saying. It's like, I'm in a privileged situation. I am a nurse, my husband is a GP, is a doctor. My son has really complex difficulties. He's in a wheelchair. I am his carer, but I can speak roughly a month, I think she said, to 80 people.
Yes.
Considering that I am English, white, I'm in an economical good position. Yeah. I've got certain knowledge and
level of education in this area.
That helps me out to understand paperwork, the processes, the procedures to go to speak to this and that and here and there. But she was saying that what happened with all those ones that they don't have what I have in the toolbox? What happened with those that didn't have the family supporting? That my husband understanding that they were going to go on holidays, and he's like, I normally tend to go when it's time to pack, so I leave my husband to pack. And he understands that I need to do work, so he needs to. It's like a co-production thing. It's like I'm on my own as a mum, or I'm on my own as a dad, nobody around. I don't speak English, or English is not my first language. I don't have that level of education that helps me out to understand paperwork and the legal process, and I need to ask, and what is my right or no. What we do with all
exactly. I mean,
with all of those, because they are out there as well.
Well, and also it is, you know, the way it works is the fact that it's, you know, they're designed not to give you the information, and it's both partly. I mean, you sit there and like we used to go, okay, what was the outcome of the meeting when we were trying to get Loddon to Loddon? Yeah. And they go, oh, we can't talk to you about what was said in that meeting because other children were discussed in that meeting, so we can't give you the notes. And you go, well, what we're going to do now is we're going to put a sub request in, which means you
done.
Then have to give us the information.
Freedom of information.
And you just sit there and you go, this is stupid.
Tell me the decision. I don't know the minutes, but tell me the final decision. Is a yes, is a no, is a maybe.
But that's just it. I mean, the reason why is eventually we actually turned around and went, right, I'll take everything. Yeah. I mean, I put a request in that went, give me everything, and
we've got
it's such a waste. It's such a waste of time.
Waste of everyone's time. Because
I have 3 foolscap boxes of notes, and then even then you can actually sounds terrible. I probably shouldn't say, but you can see that there are bits missing. Yeah. Because stuff isn't documented. Like you look at it, and 1 week they go, yes, 52-week placement, and then the next note just says 38 and. Social care. Yeah. And you're going, there is no discussion in between.
Why? So how have you reached this decision about my child? I mean, you know, we're probably hopping all over the place.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you're going to manage to put all this together. But you know, when we, you know. We always say to people, when people say Lolly's very lucky to be at Loddon, yes, I completely agree. Loddon is the most fantastic place, and they've done amazing work with him. But we would never have chosen for our child to go into a 52-week residential placement. We just wouldn't have. You know, we love Lolly, we love being with Lolly, but we were not able to provide him, apart from when he breaks, which is called the Lolly tax. Yeah. But it is that thing of, you know, if we could provide Lawrence with everything that Loddon does, which is what he needs to thrive, then we would have him at home, and we can't. So this was a really hard time for us going through these decisions, having our hearts basically torn out of our chest and stamped on the floor every time we thought about our beautiful son being away from us. And then people not giving us information on how these decisions that changed from one day to the next were being reached. That was really, really hard. And that's when the support network came in. And that was when having professionals, whether that was schools or whether that was social workers who would listen, was very important. And being able to sort of take that, because you do have this, it is a roller coaster. And, you know, I often say that the easiest bit of having a child who's as complex as Lawrence is having Lawrence. It's the stuff that comes with having Lawrence that is the really hard stuff. Because you learn and you adapt and you love, and that's okay because he's your son. At the end of the day, you can manage around these things, but what is really hard is all the stuff that comes with trying to get the best outcomes for him. That's the really difficult bit.
Yeah, definitely.
There are stones on the way, and instead of like making it easy, or this is what he needs, make my life easy, support me with what I need. Maybe I don't need to put him in a 52. Just help me out. Instead of help me out, you're like putting stones and stones and stones to make everything difficult to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, we like several times, like we've been asked for feedback about how was the process, and you say, well, the process is awkward. I said the worst thing is them going silent, them not telling you, because the moment they don't give you information, you go, oh my God, it's the worst case.
You expect the worst.
Because that's just the way your brain works. So you're automatically going, you know, like, well, we've got the space at Loddon, that's all great, and you're going, right, okay, it's awful, but this is going to be the perfect place. And then they just go silent. And you go, right, then we're not going to get it. That place will be gone. Oh my God, we're going to have to start looking all over again. And you just
everything
every
comes
time.
again.
You imagine, and like
all these feelings, and everything back again.
I mean, this is where it is. You, like I say, like you just have to become a project manager. I email, and you just like I worked out the hierarchy of the management structure.
We found the management structure of our local authority, and on a weekly basis, we just went up each level. until we went to the top. We went to the head of children's services.
It's just amazing that you have to go through that kind of effort just to.
Wow.
You know.
I mean, in some respects,
And they were fantastic. The head of children's services was fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
But also that you realise that they're under. It's not their fault per se. They're under
Amazing
very
pressure.
very hard pressure to Loddon is horrendously expensive. I mean, I talk to friends about private school fees, and then laugh when they're like, "Oh my God, it's like 30,000 a year," and you're just going, "Don't know what we're talking about." We're 270. Although I then do like the fact that some of my friends turn around and go, "What, you pay?" I'm like, "How much money do you think I spend?" But you are going to go.
I mean,
no, I really don't.
If only we could, and
Yeah,
we could, yeah.
But you understand that they're under pressure because.
It's money.
If you looking at the notes when you go through it, you basically realise that it's the moment the costs come in that it goes back to being 38 and something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And even though, like, I'm on the phone going, yeah, by the way, you're not allowed to make these changes back without justification. You are going through them, and you do. I mean, you do have to.
Yeah.
You do have to call their bluff to a certain extent.
You do.
I mean, we're lucky that we've got friends who are lawyers and stuff like that. So you can eventually just getting to the point going, how much do you want a letter from our lawyers? And that sort of.
We have two routes. Or it's me or it's my lawyer. You choose. Pick and choose
exactly.
which one you want.
But that's not something the average person can do. And and it's not something that if Lou had been on her own trying to do this, it's just not possible.
No.
The system needs to change so that it does become simpler. I mean, I know that like central funding needs to increase massively and all this sort of stuff, but it's wrong on the basis that it's engineered against you, and that shouldn't be that way, because ultimately it's not about my quality of life. It's not about your quality of life. It's about his quality.
It's about Lawrence's quality of life, but I'd probably say it's also about making sure that the family are able to provide that for Lolly, and that all the people around are able to do that. And it is that thing about. I'm very conscious of the fact that we're sort of coming in with a very sort of almost a negative vibe. We're trying to be very honest about our experience, and quite a lot of it is coming as a sort of from a place of negativity.
There needs to be honesty, yeah.
But that is our lived experience, and where we have been lucky, as John has said, is that we've had an intrinsic ability ourselves to deal with that sort of thing. Loddon were brilliant and on board and supporting us as soon as they were identified. Lawrence's school that he was at the time was fantastic.
Social worker was second to none.
I would say that his social worker that he had through his transition period was, even in amongst Loddon being fantastic, Lawrence's former school, Addington School being fantastic, I would have said the linchpin of all of it was our social worker at the time, who was honest. She didn't tell us what we wanted to hear. She told us the truth.
Which is good.
Which is brilliant. Yeah. She would be very, very not blunt with us, but she would tell us what we needed to know, and I think that's an important thing for professionals to do, but also for parents to accept, because I know that it's very difficult with a professional hat on when I've had to speak to parents about things that are very challenging. If a parent's not receptive to the message, you're allowed to be upset, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to be angry or disappointed, but you need to be receptive to the message you're hearing, because actually, if a professional's telling you something, it's not what you want to hear. They're doing that to enable you to get to the next point.
To move forward.
So I would regularly have a phone call where our social worker, a wonderful lady called Fleur, would say, "Are you on your own? Are you sitting down?" And I'd go, "Oh, Fleur, go on then." And she'd hit me with it, and I'd cry, and she'd say, "I'm sorry." And then we would take a deep breath, and I'd say, "What am I going to do next?" And that is really important. So it's important to have professionals who are honest with you, but it's important as a parent, a carer, to be able to take those messages, feel the anger, feel the sadness, feel the fear, feel the discomfort, whatever it is, breathe and go, right, where am I going to go next?
Because talking about those messages, if we go back, so we will go to Loddon and we'll talk about the school, but because I'm bringing you back because most parents find difficult the process when they find out so when the message, talking about those messages from the professionals, like,
your child has autism,
and
here's a piece of paper.
Correct. And then they can say, I'm really sorry, and they put a face like, oh, there we go, how can I say that? And then you ask some mum and dad, are they sitting like, hi, Dios mío, that was I
don't think we even had a face-to-face doctor's appointment.
How did you feel that process?
I think I've blanked it because I
distinctly
already
remember
knew.
because she blamed me.
Who did?
The doctor.
The doctor blamed you? Oh, well.
Oh, the doctor blamed you?
Well,
very the classical, what do you do for a living? Because
I
like we were, I mean, obviously we had the obviously.
See, I don't remember this. That's quite indicative.
So we had this, yeah. So I mean, obviously, you know, we started that process. You know, we were asked. You know, somebody came to a specialist came to view Lawrence at the school. They then moved us onto that. We then had a meet. So by that point, we knew what was coming.
Yeah,
like, we already knew.
We
so
knew.
we're like, you know, we'd read up. You do what we do. So you read every book that's going, and you go, right, fine, got this.
Okay.
But yeah, we went into like a room that wasn't even as big as this, and the doctor watched Lowell play for a little bit.
I do remember it. Now it's coming back into it.
Yeah.
Well, she asked us like, do any members of your family got autism? I'm like, no, they're all fine. They're all a bit
Stop
weird.
using the word fine and normal.
Well, I mean, let's go. Your family's not exactly normal, but
That's not what I meant.
but we had that conversation. But then, like, she just went, and what do you do for a living? And you go, well, I work in banking. And so, well, what do you do? It's like, well, I analyse data. I literally sit looking at numbers all day. She went, oh, do you like numbers? I was like, yeah, it's all right. You know, and it's just that thing. You go, good at problem solving? Yes, good at all that. She went, cool. Your son's got autism then. And he was like, right, cool.
Yeah.
No ifs, no buts.
I find that a bit surprising.
Hello.
Yeah, that's basically how that conversation went.
Well, I think it's that thing, and as I said, I worked in a special needs school for quite a few years in parent support. So I heard this story from so many other parents of young people with autism. They go, your child's got autism, here's a fact sheet, off you go.
Yeah.
Here is a link to the National Autistic website, and off you go. And
good luck.
Well done.
It's that thing, you know, it's a really often used phrase, isn't it, in circles of people who work with our really special people, which is, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. But you get this catch-all. You get this worksheet, there's this group that maybe, and off, and you go, and suddenly it is like being pushed out of an aeroplane without a parachute. Because you've been told this is this is your life now. Autism is a lifelong condition. You know, we know that. We know that our young people with autism will need support all the way through their lives. But you're pushed out that door. And nobody says to you, you know, this is what you can do next. They don't give you what you need and want, which is, what can I do next to support my child? But I think one of the things that was really lacking, and probably with time I've come to realise it, is that it's not just about diagnosis. Autism isn't just about writing a word on a piece of paper, this child has this diagnosis. It's about everything else, and there needs to be support for the parents as well. You need to, you know, you need to go through a process of realising that the life you expected with your child is not going to be the life that you have. It doesn't mean that life is terrible. It doesn't, it's just a different path. But you need somebody to acknowledge that and support you to come to terms with that, and to realise that it's not, you know, this terrible thing, but it is going to be different. Yeah. And the way you're going to have to go through life and walk through life with your child is going to be different. So
how did you leave that process of understanding that your pathway will be slightly different?
So a lot of reading.
A lot of reading. Fortunately, having that sort of prior knowledge of working with young people with autism. And then, I mean, when we were still living in the Midlands, there was pretty much nothing. We just got on. We just cracked on.
I mean, it sounds terrible. We were incredibly fortunate to split up because Lou moved down.
I moved to Wokingham.
And suddenly hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the first special school that Lowell went to.
Yeah.
That, you know, he was only 3, 4.
Yeah, he went.
They were amazing.
Yeah, he went to a nursery. He went to a nursery at a family centre, and I'd sort of gone in to see them, and I said, look, my son's got a diagnosis of autism. You know, he has delayed communication. You know, he's got an amazing vocabulary, but it's functional, not contextual language. It's echolalia. It's, you know. And they were fantastic, and they said, yeah, this young person needs specialist school. So we were very, very fortunate that we were just down the road from an exceptional special school, and he was there from reception age right up until the time he transferred to Loddon. And that was what he needed, but I'm very, very aware of, and it shouldn't be this way, but I'm very aware of how lucky we were and how lucky he was, because I know there is such a shortfall now with children like Lawrence needing a school placement like that, and there not being enough schools around, there not being enough spaces.
I mean, it was very much left to our own devices.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And that is, it's hard, but like I say, I mean, I mean, Lowell's hard work, but he's also he can be incredibly self-contained. So he can, you know, I mean, as a baby, if you wanted a quiet morning, you'd literally fan books out in front of him. and then he would move, and you'd be like, oh, cool, I can do something. Or I can sit and watch the rugby whilst I get over my hangover. But it's all those sort of things. It's all those sort of things. But with a child that is properly 24/7, like so many more are, where do you find the time to read? Where do you find the time to do your research? This stuff isn't there. The support isn't there for you, and it is.
And I guess as well, because we are talking what we were saying before, when I've got a certain level, so when the information comes to me, it doesn't come with easy wording, doesn't come, it's really technical. So when we are reading about autism, it normally comes in a really technical way, really technical words. I think now it's coming more approachable. But before, I think it was really psychological based or psychiatrist based, and then
I would
tricky to
but also I think there is still that. It's just at the moment, I mean, obviously the world works in stereotypes. But it is that thing, you're like, you know, here's a piece of paper, walk out the door, you're going to have a child that doesn't want to hug you, that will basically not do anything, and then you just go, oh, right, what am I going to do now?
I think that's really interesting, actually, and that was something I was considering, because I know we're talking about what parents may experience or familiar experiences with sort of the medical profession when it comes to young people with autism. Lawrence also has, as many children with, as some children with autism may have, what they call comorbidities. So he has other things that go alongside his autism. And that has been an ongoing battle for us with medical professionals as well, is, you know, Lawrence is 17 now, and he's just getting treatment for his tiptoe walking that has been really supported by Loddon and the Loddon School team. But we've been questioning the fact that Lawrence tiptoe walks since he began to walk, and it wasn't till he was about 12 that he actually was seen by anybody in orthopaedics, because we were told it's just normal for autistic children to tiptoe walk, get him to ride a bike, get him to walk up hills. And it was like, by the time he was seen, actually, he'd gone past a point where, you know, physio wasn't working, OT wasn't working, but we were told it's because he's autistic and you're not trying hard enough. Well, actually, it's not. And we're at a point now where Lawrence is having surgery because actually it's not that people aren't trying hard enough or doing OT or he's not active. It's because there's something going on. The same with anxiety. For very many years, we were questioning if he had underlying anxiety, which was causing behavioural and communication issues. His schools were questioning it, and we were told, no, it's because he's autistic. Well, an autistic person can also have anxiety, but it wasn't looked into. Now he's on medication to help moderate his anxiety. He's able to communicate, access learning, go out in social situations, and even to his continence.
Also his epilepsy.
And his epilepsy. Actually, how did I manage to forget the epilepsy?
I mean, we look back, you know, and you know,
we first queried it when he was 8 years old.
Yeah, because he kept being sick on Mondays. I used to get a lot of questions of what I was feeding him.
What you were feeding him at the weekend.
Yeah.
And he would have absences.
And like you go, and the school was just like,
He's been sick. He's got to go home for 48 hours.
And it would just be that thing where you go, well, he's obviously autistic. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and we went and we saw epilepsy. I think we once saw an epilepsy doctor who said, well, he's not had anything in 4 weeks, so I just put it down to his autism. Yeah. He went to Loddon. Loddon flagged it up. And yes, he has got brain damage to the white matter in his brain, and he has got epilepsy, which is now controlled by medication. But from the age of 8, we were questioning, why are these things happening to our child with regard to absences? From the age of 3, we were questioning. From the age of 3, we were questioning what's going on with his feet and his legs. And from the age of about 10 or 11, we were questioning what's going on with his anxiety levels. And all of those things were just, it's because he has autism. And that's really disingenuous to autistic people, and it's really hard for autistic families.
It just becomes a catch-all reason to explain any neurodiversity, really. Yeah. It's just that, well, he's got that tag, so everything's related to that.
But sometimes they need to look at these situations without applying that tag, because they're thinking, it's all coming under the same umbrella when it's not. It could be something separate.
Being sick like once a week, phasing out, literally passing out, going to sleep for an hour, then waking up. That's not autism.
Yeah.
That, at no stretch of the imagination is that autism. But because that tag already existed,
it must be his
that's
autism.
What it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
See, that is frustrating.
It's sad,
Yeah. And really, especially sad when now that he has had the support that maybe could have come earlier, we've seen the benefits it's had for him. And you can't help as a parent but feel a little bit angry about that, thinking if we'd have been taken seriously and not dismissed as just autism parents with an autistic child,
pushy,
would his life outcomes have improved? Would we be in a would he be in a situation like
what's happened all those times he has had a seizure?
Yeah, because every time a child has a seizure, there's potential for brain damage, and we know Lawrence already has brain damage. So, we're he's very, very precious, and I think we get very, very angry when we can, that thing of the dismissiveness. He's our most precious possession, and it's a bit like, if you had a Fabergé egg and somebody just kept getting out and throwing it around a bit and sticking it back in the box. That's how we feel about Lawrence. Don't just take him, look at him and dismiss him. Treat him with care and respect.
If someone from the health or is any professional, as I hope you do,
and
guys,
we do love healthcare professionals, I have to say. It sounds like we don't on them.
We don't have anything, but when things are being done wrong in the wrong way, I think it needs to be said. Yeah, we cannot just carry on with it's fine. They are colleagues. No,
but then
this is wrong. This is wrong.
That's the issue though, because you're not an expert. You accept what's happening. I mean, we can go all the way back to the birth, which was,
let's not.
But essentially, you defer because you go, well, do you know what? You're the specialist. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you come to me and tell me my numbers are wrong, the first thing I'm going to do is go.
Yeah, but
then I might actually have a look. But at least I actually have a look.
Yes. Yeah.
But with those, with a lot of doctors, you go, I don't think you're right, and they're like,
well, I am.
Who are you? I've done 7 years together.
Because before it was less known that it is now. So you go to the doctor and they tell you your child is autistic, but you believe and that's it, because you are the doctor. I am not. You have the knowledge, I do not. So I guess I need to trust you.
Absolutely.
Is that when they tell you have cancer, you're not going to argue with the doctor, are you? Like, you believe
you're just going to say, okay,
yeah, that's fine. And what's
how
the
are you
next
going to help me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then anything under the roof can be cancer. So if you're throwing up, if you have a headache, is everything cancer? So you're probably like, I've got a bag somewhere.
Oh, that'll be because of
or I got a cold, or it cannot be always everything cancer. That's the same. But it's really the same, that they're like, everything is autism, and I think we still have that fight because we see that with CAM, we see that with other professionals.
And you're right when you say we still have that fight, because even when we went to I'm very conscious that I don't want to name certain services that we've been to, because I know that there are so many professionals who are working so hard, but we did go to a sort of a specialist paediatric who literally every question or query or thought I had was, it's his autism, this is just the way it is. It's his autism. This is just the way it is. And if it wasn't for the fact that we, for whatever reason, have that tenacity as a family unit, and if it wasn't for the fact that he was in a fantastically supportive school, and if it wasn't for the fact that we had a brilliant school nurse who was very supportive, where would Lolly be now? You know, where would Lolly be now if we hadn't
he could quite easily have just been lost. He could be sitting at home, you know, and the problem is, you know, I'm sure you're aware, working with him, if he loses it, it's not always a good outcome.
No, it's not a good outcome.
It's not a good outcome. I have a lot of scars.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just because, and that's him being nice.
Well, there's no malice. He can't.
He's not doing it. But
his distress any other way.
Because this is always the thing. Like when you're out in public with it, what happens if he loses it? But now the thing is, he's in a better place. He's getting the right treatments. He's more relaxed. But a child that isn't, a child that's at home or having to go to a mainstream school or with limited support, Lawrence would be he would be a ball of rage. You know, because that's always the issue. If he's out and about and he loses it, it's not the person. It's not going to be directed at somebody, but theoretically, if he grabs somebody, he is so strong.
Well, and he can harm himself, which he will be like.
Yeah, well, I mean, we see that he harms himself through the things that he does to regulate. And you know, we were joking as I was going under the beams. Obviously, I'm nearly 6 foot tall, and you know, I'm not exactly the slimmest person in the world. Lawrence can pick me up when he's happy and throw me around. When he's got the adrenaline of an anxiety, you know, and I wouldn't even say with Lawrence it's rage. I would say it's that fight or flight. It's his anxiety. And you know, we are lucky now that his anxiety is moderated because he's been seen by the correct people, he's had his diagnosis and he's taking medication. But when the medication stops working or being less effective, we see an uptick in those behaviours. Now, we're fortunate that we can access CAMHS and we get all the support from the school to do that. But if a young person doesn't have that, if Lawrence didn't have that, where would he be? Where would we be?
You'd be in so much trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, at some point I need to redecorate to get rid of the holes in the wall from the remote control thing.
And buy another TV.
And the shower.
Yeah, there's quite a few things. But I mean, but that's not him. It's not doing it on purpose. It's
it's not at all.
That's what happens.
I think he's such a character, isn't he? It's like we need to go to the uniqueness of our children. Sometimes we go to the bad things.
Absolutely.
But we need to. I think we need to have in mind, and it's important that they are their own character. It's like Lolly is Lolly, and it will be always Lolly.
Oh yeah, his self-expression is great. Yeah, the way he expresses everything. Yeah.
You know, the only thing is it might have his difficulties in communicating, in putting it forward, and he needs help to regulate himself, which that's why his team will support him through, like, not letting him down. Meanwhile, when you need that support, you will go and call your friends, or we will call our family. I will call my mom and say, like, I had a bad day. That's my strategy, like support strategies. For him will be the Eagles team saying, here we are, don't worry, we are here for you, we will go through this together. However, this is not all the time. There's many times where he's happy, he's achieving, he's engaging, he's being himself, and then when you see him around, it's like, there he is, well, that's, and it's like that uniqueness of Lawrence, and it will be another one.
Oh my gosh, he's ridiculously charming, and he's got the most infectious laugh. And you know, Lolly is loved by so many people because of his, like you said, uniqueness, individuality, charm, those quirks that make him a phenomenal young person. And that is the same with the other young people at Loddon and other young people who are similar to the cohort at Loddon. You know, whenever I come to an event at Loddon, young people there with complex and, you know, spiky profiles. We always talk about spiky profiles. And they're the most lovely and fantastic young people to be around, aren't they? You know, there's a reason why people do this work and want to work at places like Loddon. It's because the young people are unique and special and fantastic to be around and teach you so much. but it's also hard.
Yeah.
That's what's motivating, though. Is part of it is the challenge and stuff that I personally find.
Yeah, it's finding that key and unlocking the door and seeing what comes out.
I get the biggest kick out of those relationships, and when you build up stuff, I think that's
when he's in the right environment, when he doesn't have the anxiety around him, when there isn't somebody beeping their car horn.
Or a baby crying.
Or a dog barking. Or any of those. Those are the moments when you see him come out. This is the one thing we always said, like even when we spoke to Cans, and we were talking about his anxiety. We're always very much a case of, yes, he needs help, but that help has got to only get to a certain point to help him. Like he obviously takes sertraline for his anxiety, but literally the first thing we said was, well, okay, if that's what you recommend, but
we don't want to lose Lolly.
But we don't want to lose what the intrinsic bit of him. I don't want him doped up to the eyeballs that he's a walking zombie. He has to be
himself.
Him.
He is
So if we can just get it to a level where it just takes the edge, we don't want to take all of it, just take the edge off, and that's always the key, because it's the person, it's the child underneath that you love, and
you cannot lose that child.
And also, that's his experience. It's no fun for him if he's walking around in a fuzz. He wants to experience life. He wants to run around. He wants to go ride Annie and go for a swim.
All
those sort of things. But when last December when we had to change his
that was
epilepsy medication,
it was horrific.
It absolutely wiped him out. It was so bad. I mean, never before we've been sitting there going, right, when he's phoned the doctor, this has got to stop. I know it's not the right thing, but this medication has stopped now because this is beyond the pale, because we've lost him.
We spent. He lost. He lost so much weight. He was.
It's unusual because of what he eats.
Well, he's a skinny old beanpole, but he lost so much weight, and he was not Lawrence, and we couldn't even find Lawrence, and he was, nauseous. He vomited for 48 hours straight. He couldn't eat. He couldn't anything, and it was just the most powerless kind of. There's lots of times where you do feel a bit powerless, I've got to be honest, but that's the most powerless I felt, because there was nothing I could do to help him, and he couldn't tell me what was wrong, and that was when the pointy elbows had to come out, and that, no, we're not doing this. And school were brilliant. School supported us 100% with getting that, but we had sort of 6 or 7 weeks where Lawrence was in that position, and you just think, this is just not right. No. It's not right. And would it be happening if he was a 16-year-old who would be able to say, I feel sick, I'm not doing this, I can't do this anymore?
There is that. And as a parent, it's that horrible balance of, is this making my child better in the long term? Or do I take a short-term hit? Yeah. Or and you sort of go, okay, that's why you go for the first few weeks, and you're like, this is not getting any better, this is getting worse.
Talking about your experience with professionals, and coming from that sector, probably so you're halfway
very
there. What would you say to everybody out there? So, if doctors, medical professionals, either way, social workers, CAMs, carers, teachers, what would you say to them? What advice would you give it to them when they are treating with parents with children with autism?
2 key things. The first thing, and this goes across the board, and it's also experience I've had fed back to me by lots of parents of children with additional needs, not just necessarily autism. Read the notes, because I cannot count fingers, toes, get you all to take your shoes and socks off. I couldn't count on all of your fingers and toes how many times I have had to go through Lawrence's entire story. Not only is that for many parents, and depending on where I am on the upswing of happy, sad, Valkyrie, mum, whatever it is, it can be quite traumatic for parents, but also even the most recent appointment we had with Lawrence on Tuesday, the consultant was fabulous, but he came in and spoke directly to Lawrence and asked him his age. Now, we're always really explicit when we meet any healthcare professionals. These are the challenges Lawrence has. This is his communication style. Read the notes. Don't come in and have, an entire first half of your consultation taken up by parents having to relive and re-go through everything. This time is finite. We know it's really hard to get appointments. Don't waste the first 10 minutes of your consultation going back through things that you can read in the notes. And I know it's hard, they see lots of people, but please just read the notes. That would be the first thing. And the second thing is that, listen to parents. I know myself, with a professional head on and working with lots and lots and hundreds and maybe even thousands of parents over the years, sometimes you're tired, you're cranky, you've got your 15th appointment today. But, when you've got a child who has as special and diverse a profile as Lawrence, please listen to the parents and listen to their worries and their concerns, because this is not going to be like another child you've seen before. He's not going to be like a child that you've seen before. Please listen to them and take on board their worries and accept that these people are going through a journey which can be joyful and wonderful and fabulous, but can also be traumatic and heartbreaking. And, allow these parents and carers the space to breathe and share their experience too. Because very often they're their child's advocate and their voice. So they need to be heard. And very often I haven't felt heard, and I don't think you have either.
No.
So it's just listen, please just listen.
Yeah, there is that thing where definitely I suppose with a neurotypical child, you can ask them what their experiences are, and that, whereas we're having to relay them. And you can see they're almost kind of going, is it really though?
Is this your agenda?
Yeah. And I think, certainly from my point of view, the one thing I would say is it's information. Give feedback. I'd rather have 100 pages to look through than nothing.
Nothing.
Just and don't give me stupid things like, I can't give you this when I know you can, because it just aggravates me and puts you on my bad list.
And probably give me the truth. You were mentioning before, like, don't lie to me,
concealment is just as bad, isn't it?
That's it.
The message is going to have to come out at some point. The reality is going to have to be faced. At least give parents that respect of giving them the true message.
And if you keep us updated, it means you're not just, because I think sometimes they almost go for a shock and awe approach, where it's like, okay, here's boom, we've made a decision, that's it. Well, I always say, look, it's a partnership. We're trying to work with you. We're all trying to come out to an outcome that works for all of us. Now, whether that is you saving some money, us getting what we need, ultimately, because also if you come out at loggerheads, and if you start to come for us, I'm going to come back with a very big sledgehammer.
Yeah, with Lawrence's name on it.
Yeah, and I'm always going to win.
Yeah, well, we've won so far, and I think we potentially, hopefully, always will.
But I think that's because we come at it from a rational point of view. We go, we're not expecting the world. We understand the limitations that.
But I think as well, the professionals, sometimes we need to face difficult conversations, what we call difficult parents. That's from a side. Here we have difficult parents. Here we are. A difficult meeting. Here we are.
Yes.
And I think I was listening to Rachel Wright the other day, and she made me click on something that made me see things in another view or from another perspective. It's like, the situation is difficult.
Yes.
It's not the parents.
Not the parents.
Difficult.
Yes.
And I will say as well that if I were in their position, if I'm going through trauma, if I'm not dealing with the situation that I've got in front of me, if we are talking about the most precious thing in my life is my son, how would I be? Easy?
Yeah.
If everybody as a mum and dad made a question like to themselves, like, how would I be if you're coming to touch the most precious thing in my life, if you're coming to talk about my son, and not in a really careful way, when I'm actually in a trauma dealing with this traumatic situation, because I haven't dealt yet with assuming maybe that my child is not going to be as I expected, because that is quite traumatic, and then needs to do some work in that. how would I be? Would I be easy? Would I be like, oh yeah, it's okay? Yeah. Or would I be like, whoa, wait there a minute, and I'm quite Spanish in this. Making
Which is
it's got to be teamwork.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes when you put yourself in the other side, it's like, well, this is going to be a difficult conversation. Yes. Let's see how we can make it less difficult. Yeah. Let's see how we can put ourselves in the same level. And then I need to make them understand that I care about the same they care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Because that is something that very often, and I know it is just because, like you said, parents, very often you're coming from a place of trauma or anger or fear. So that's how you're receiving the message. But very often you don't feel that. You feel almost a coldness and a sense of detachment. And, you know, it is that thing about the conversations are difficult. These are life-changing decisions, conversations that are being had, and not just for the young person, but for their parents, for their siblings, for their grandmas, grandpas, aunties, uncles. You know, we're not just talking about one consultation in isolation. So, you know, I think that is such a brilliant way of putting it. It's the conversation that's difficult. It's not the parent. And, you know, I think for healthcare professionals or social care professionals or educational professionals, to see that demonstration of upset, anger, fear, worry, you know, not to be sort of confronted by not to take that on, this is this person, they're angry at me. They're not, they're angry at the situation. And equally to parents, you know, allow yourself to feel all the feels. You know, you need to process how you feel about these things. I've spoken to so many parents, and I've been guilty of it myself, who've sort of done exactly what you said, the nodding, smiling, oh, okay, yeah, you take the little work book, you say, yeah, I will phone that, and you go home and you cry and you cry and you cry, and you don't know where to turn, and then you keep it inside because you've got to be strong for your child, you've got to be strong for the people going, you've got to be strong for the family, you know. Actually, you need to be able to process all of that, because if you can't process it, it will sit inside you and it will just stay. And it will go somewhere. And it will go somewhere at some point in time, because I've blown up, you've blown up. It's not pretty.
I mean, for me,
you cannot keep it inside for
for me, the worst thing was the blame.
Yeah, the blame.
If they've got to get past that, because it's not a blame. It's just a condition. But I carried that burden of that,
Yeah, that conversation. And, you know, my younger son has been diagnosed with dyspraxia, and I've had it mentioned to me that possibly I need to go for an adult ADHD assessment. So suddenly, blame, neurodivergence, it runs in families. Oh my gosh, it must be me, you know.
Well, I carry that. I mean, it sounds horrible, but the best piece of news I've had in a long time was Lowell having his brain scanned.
Because we realised that actually Lawrence had, you know, without giving away too much of his medical details, without his permission, but Lawrence had a very traumatic birth, and he has got brain damage. You know, it's not a huge, you know, it's not as huge and profound as it is for some young people. But actually, like John, when that turned up, when we had that result, there was that little bit of guilt that lifted off both of us, because it was like, actually, some of the way that the challenges that Lolly has, some of the way he sees the world and some of the way he interacts in the world, it's probably down to brain damage. It's not our fault. We didn't do this to him.
No.
And we shouldn't feel that way.
No.
Because having a child is a lottery. You know, anyone can have a child like Lolly.
That is exactly what I carried around for years. Because you just sit there going, you know, I've ruined Lou's life, or in his life, you know, it's all me. And you go...
Yeah, but I think in that way, I would say, because we are parents here.
Yes.
I would say that when I remember when you came with Lawrence at school.
Yes.
And I was in the grounds.
See, I don't remember you because I was so traumatised. Not by you, I hate to
I hope so. No, I was in the grounds with other students, and they were like, oh, they are new parents with a new child. It's mum and dad. I was like, okay, that's fine. And I saw them. It was like a lovely family. And then knowing you here, guys, is what I said to you. Is like you can see that commitment that you have with Lawrence.
Absolutely.
You see that that you're working together to
Yeah.
do everything that is the best for him, and this is the advocate that is there, and you can tell that this is the teamwork. I think you are like the ideal teamwork that you can so we will put you to do parenting courses.
Teamwork makes the dream
Just
work.
don't ever put us on a ball game
Parenting
together.
School by Lucy and John today. We will do a podcast for you too.
Gosh.
But I think you can see, like, I know that the blame comes, and I think every single parent will be in your position, and they will have that blame of what I've done wrong, what could I have done in a different way.
100%. But we're going through this currently. We're with our child as well, because his communication has regressed. So he used to count from 1 to 10 in English and Spanish, and now that's gone away. He used to say "Hello, Daddy" when I got home, and that's gone. And we're currently going through the process of going, oh, was it because we sent him to Spain and that confused him? Or was it because we did this? And was it because he was ill that time and he spent time in hospital? And he did. And we're currently because our son, just for context, our son's he's about 3 years old. He's about to turn 4, but he's recently had regression. So we're actually starting this process. That's why I've been just listening to you guys quite intently. But I am taking some of this in, because we are starting to experience this, and who knows,
We're available for support and consultation at any point you need us.
We're going to open a new podcast, David. Here.
Angry parents go back.
Yes. But it is, the guilt thing is crazy, and it's sort of like it's always there, and it keeps kind of like it just comes out every now and then.
Even though it's irrational.
Yes,
even
that's
though
the thing.
even though, like, I've read all the books. I mean, God, my bookcase is very dull. So even one of my friends even commented after my bookcase. But there were lots of books about autism, and like you read it and you go, well, it's not genetic, it's not inherited, it's just one of those things. But it's affected so many aspects of my life.
But then
it just that holding that guilt in, where you just go, relationships, everything. You just go, oh no. Because like that whole concept.
I think it's because your mind wants to have a reason for it. I don't know. I think there's something sort of fundamentally instinctive where you're like, I don't understand what's happening here. There must be a reason. And so you're just looking constantly for a reason until you kind of come up with the explanation of, like you said, that you just need to kind of move forward. Well, and at the end of the day.
But like I say, like the doctor turned around going, congrats. It's you, right? And it's just literally just off. You're like,
stop looking at numbers, John.
And you're just going, hell. And I mean, actually, one of my friends went, oh, you must be so glad that you got that diagnosis of, minor brain damage.
And it was like,
because it's lifted that guilt.
And it just sounds so weird that we both,
It also helped explain so many things, because like you look at him and you go, there's that classic, like say you go with stereotypes, you go, he's affectionate, what's going on? He he's affectionate to an annoying extent that sometimes he forgets that he's 6'4" and sits on your lap for a hug. But
which is much more difficult for me than it is for you. I very often have to go, I can't breathe, Lawrence. But again, it was that thing of, it absolutely took away some element of guilt. But, I think another thing is, with John saying, he had that guilt because he thought that he brought this upon Lawrence and in turn brought it upon all these other people in a ripple effect. I had the same guilt. Was it something I did? Was it something I ate? Did I not shout up enough? I was like textbook doing everything right mum during pregnancy. And it's, that guilt and the ripple effect that you've had on the family. But kind of want to turn it on its head a tiny bit, because I don't want it to all be a sort of a heart-wrenching thing, was that the ripple effect can be positive of having a young person like Lawrence in your life. My dad is he's from Manchester, he's a very stoic northern bloke, not very touchy-feely, more so over the years, I've got to say, in case he's listening. Love you, Dad. But he did say to me, although, we actually started it with, pet, because he's northern. He said, having Lawrence in our lives has been really, really scary, but it's been fantastic in another way. And I was sort of like, what do you mean? It's, I know this, but I'm not expecting this message from you. And he said, because without knowing Lawrence, I wouldn't know people like Lawrence. And he has enabled me to see there are different people in the world and see that there is, joy and love that comes in a different way to the normal. And he said, and I would never have known that. I would never have experienced that without Lawrence. that support package, like we've spoken about, with that support network that we have. I mean, our family is all over the country, so it's quite difficult to access it sometimes. A great source of support is very often as well meeting other parents who are on a similar journey to you. Forums online can sometimes be a bit of a touchy place because it can be a bit, I'd say meet people in person and actually speak to people, and they can possibly help you because they actually know what it's like to walk in your shoes or in similar shoes. Because I don't think no two people with autism are the same. The family's experiences aren't the same.
And that's why there isn't that pack, because it's not going to apply to everyone.
Even as we've been sat here and talking about the response you sometimes get from healthcare professionals, I wonder if some of it is because they just want to tread a neutral line. They don't want to give the bad message. They don't want to give the false hope message. So they're treading that neutral line of facts that they understand. But it needs to be more than that. It needs to be, you're dealing with people.
But like I say, to reiterate Lou's point, he has also had amazing positive impact.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he has brought our family close together. My nephew is an amazing young man. I think partly because of it.
Yeah, and Lolly's little brother Nate, the acceptance that he's got from people who can appear differently. I remember when he was about 6 years old, he had a little friend come over, and Lolly was having a bit of a meltdown, and his friend who'd never met somebody with autism or special needs before said, "Oh my gosh, what's going on with your brother?" And Nate just turned around and went, "Don't worry about it. He's got the autism." And it's just that level of acceptance.
And normality, isn't it?
Normality.
And it is what it is.
And that is it,
If you grow up with it, I think it becomes second nature. But I think that's what society needs, is a wider aspect. The more visible children with disabilities are, the greater the acceptance is.
I mean, what is normal? Normal is what you see every day and you take into your life and you accept. That's what normal is. And for our family, normal is having a very handsome, very tall 17-year-old sunflower who carries around Toothless the dragon bat from How to Train Your Dragon and will get me to sing Nina and the Neurons in Costa, which is embarrassing. But that's normal. What is... Who's to say?
Normal is kind of like when you start comparing, that's when normal comes into it. And really, it's an individual. And one of the things I love about Lawrence is his self-expression. I think he's the way he is just, and like you were saying, that ripple effect of, you were talking about it in a negative aspect, about the ripple effect, about what it's like. But then you've turned it on his head here by saying that there's also this very positive ripple effect that kind of counterbalances it all out. I mean,
imagine a world where there weren't people like Lawrence.
Exactly.
You can't, can you? I mean, we need all different, society hopefully is becoming more accepting of people in their true and authentic selves, and we need people like Lawrence.
Certainly.
To teach
working with Lawrence and other kids at Loddon, I learned things about myself working with them, and they make you grow, especially in an empathy sort of person. Certainly.
I'm far more tolerant as as my sister will point out.
It certainly teaches patience, doesn't it? Yes.
I'm far more forceful. So swings and roundabouts. But it's there are hard things. It will be a battle, but there are so many joys as well. Don't let anybody dull the shine that is your child and your relationship with them, despite the hardships, and be human. Accept you will be sad, you will be happy, you will be joyful, you'll be disappointed, you'll feel guilty.
And don't if you get angry, we sit and we preach and we say, he's amazing. Christ alive, he makes me angry at times, especially when he starts slamming doors in my house and destroying various things. But accept you'll get angry, and it's a perfectly acceptable thing. You don't have to. We
didn't come with angel. We always say this.
Yeah.
When we got Lawrence, we didn't get a halo and angel wings. And people will say to us, "Oh, a child like Lawrence got sent to parents like you because of the way you are," and we just look and go, "Nope." We're the parents we are because we've got Lawrence.
You can make me angry. You can make me smile. You can make me cry. You can do everything. But
I think it's being parent. So we're not describing his voice being parents.
Parenting.
How was your experience when Lawrence was at home, shifting school home? Because then you did a massive change and a big decision of deciding that Lawrence needed to come to Loddon School, because that went for a 52 weeks residential place.
Yeah.
So it wasn't at home anymore.
No, it was. I don't want to say that our hand was forced, but we had become increasingly aware that Lawrence's experience at his school and in his respite that we absolutely needed because of sleep issues and things like that was breaking down, and it came to the point where he had to leave his mainstream special needs school. We went through all the heartache and all of that stuff, and he transitioned over. Now, before he transitioned over, obviously he was at home with me, Russ, and his little brother Nate, and his stepbrothers when they were at home, and life literally revolved around Lawrence 24/7. Meal times, bedtimes. We went through a period in our lives where Lawrence didn't sleep. He would wake up. He would either wake up screaming at 1 o'clock in the morning, which would disturb us all, or he would just wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and stay awake. And I was working full time, and Russ was working full time, and the boys were going to school. So that was really difficult. It was life at home with Lawrence was challenging, very, very challenging. I don't think I realised how challenging it was until he actually did go to Loddon. So it broke my heart. I couldn't take him to Loddon on the day that he went to Loddon. I just couldn't. I had to say goodbye to him at the doorstep. Went inside. It was like Hurricane Katrina. I was sobbing, punching things, throwing things. I didn't want him to go. What I've realised, and I know this is just one person, one family's experience, and I'm not saying it's the same for everybody, it's a cure-all, but what I've found is that Loddon can provide Lawrence with what he needs that we could never do at home because we're not millionaires and we don't have the stuff that we need.
Yeah, definitely haven't got a horse.
No, or a swimming pool. But what it's also made me realise is how close to burnout we all were. Because I didn't realise how challenging our life was until some of those day-to-day challenges were taken away. And I now look back at where we were just before Lawrence came to Loddon, and he was on a part-time timetable at school, and his behaviours had escalated because his anxiety was going untreated, and he couldn't communicate, and he was becoming violent and aggressive, and his sleep was off, and all of those things. And I literally now don't know how we functioned as a family unit.
I think also this is also the thing whereby you're back to that guilt thing where you feel like you should be able to cope. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had it easy. I had just the weekends and stuff like that, and if Lou and Russ ever needed, I would come. But there is that guilt aspect. I mean, even when he went to respite, I absolutely hated it. I hated the idea.
I hated him going to respite. I hated somebody else putting him to bed.
There is very much that point. You think you should be able to cope.
Yeah.
It's a child. Why can't you cope with the child?
Your child.
Yeah. Why can't you cope? What's wrong with you? But I would say to anybody, get all the help you can get.
Yes,
because ultimately, it's not you that's failing. What you are doing is enabling your child to reach their maximum potential.
And you as a family as well, because I guess when those dynamics like you are burnt out, you can't cope, this is difficult for you, it's difficult for him, it's for the siblings. So at some point it's like a negative dynamic, I guess, for everybody. Meanwhile, if you ask for help, he's in the right place, he's having the right support, he's happy, he's safe, and in the same time you can enjoy your life as a family together with him, so you are in a healthy position now to move forward. If not, it's like I think that I need to say I saw many parents crying when they come the first time and say bye to the child. So if that helps you guys, it's heartbroken.
Oh God, the first time I
think I just need to hold it together and then go somewhere. Not the first time to do that because it's heartbroken to see them how they find difficult. And I know I work a lot on, and I sometimes you wish to say like, I wish I could give it to you what I know, because you won't be crying. You will be living like, okay, he's gonna be fine, he's gonna be safe, he's gonna be that.
And maybe that's part of what,
but it's part of the process.
Maybe that's part of us talking about this experience can give parents who are wondering whether or not they should try and access respite, or scared because somebody said in order to get this service you need to speak to a social worker. I mean, that's a huge thing for parents because again, going back to the guilt, The only people who have social workers are people who can't cope. No, that's not
bad parents.
And that's not true of social workers in general. Social workers are there they're there in some cases.
There is that perception out there, though, that there's something wrong or something going on if the social worker gets involved. I see why that's still a
and the amount of parents that I've spoken to and said, have you spoken to disabled children's team or the equivalent in your area? Have you asked for an assessment? I'm not having a social worker come round my house. Or they may have had family or friends who've had bad interactions with social services for another reason. And it's so hard. And I used to say to our social worker, can't you just change your names? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, can't you call yourself something like a family enablement officer if you're dealing with families with disabled children? Because, when I say to people, I knew the process inside out, and yet the first couple of dozen times I had to say to somebody when I took Lolly to the doctors or to the hospital and they said, does he have a social worker? And I said yes, and the guilt and the perceived judgment and the why has your child got a social worker? And it may not have even, those might not have even been the messages I was receiving from those people, but it's certainly how I felt.
Sure. Exactly.
And that is
just that whole concept of asking for help, I think is really hard. And there is the tendency to say, oh no, no, we can manage, we can get through this, we can, we'll do something different. And the problem is you're fooling yourself. Because if you're not at 100%, how are you supposed to help your child?
Or you're the children.
Exactly. Well, there are. Quite often there are that. But that's the whole point. And I think it's very hard because, I mean, like I said, we're incredibly lucky. Lou knew everything inside out. But even like getting to fill out the forms, to have those discussions, to do the paperwork. The questions are loaded because it's like, can you cope? If we give you X, can you cope? And the questions are rigged because they're designed. You have got to say, we're at breaking point. We are. We're about to implode.
Do you think a lot of people don't get the services because they're not willing to
exactly
they're not willing
to say it, or they'll give it, or they'll say, oh, actually, I think
they're not ready in their own process. Like, I think you need to be ready somehow to say, I'm at breaking point. I can't go with this anymore. I think personally, psychologically, somehow you need to be ready to ask for help.
Well, it's embarrassing as well.
It's embarrassing. It's loaded with guilt. It's loaded with judgment. But when working with families, and the mantra I've had to use for myself and for John and for the rest of the family is, nobody needs help on a good day. You only need help on a bad day. Right. So you have to talk about the bad day. Because
that's what there is super cute.
I mean, don't talk about the lovely day when he stumbles into our bedroom at a silly clock and he brings his duvet and he snuggles and you cuddle and you watch Zog on TV, because yes, those days exist, but there are also the days when he screams and he shouts and there's holes in the plaster and you've not slept for 3 days and you need to go to work and your younger child is saying, why does Lolly hurt you? Those are the days that people need to help you on, so those are the days they need to know about. And I'm not doing anything wrong when those days happen. No. Those days just happen.
It is. You've got to... It sounds horrible. You've got to take yourself out of the picture. You have to sit there and almost...
analyse your life and you're not part of that situation.
Become super analytic and say, ultimately, what is the best outcome for him? What can I deliver for him or her? Or that ultimately means that they will progress. Now, if that means I have to step back away from being a full-time parent, then that's what you have to do. It's horrible, but ultimately that's it. Like I say, I think I touched on it earlier. We're currently just we went to the hospital on Tuesday.
Spent all day in Southampton,
and we're sitting there, and you go, well, what we're going to do is we're going to cut his legs open and lengthen his Achilles, and you sit there as a parent and go, so what's that? And you go, 6 weeks in plaster, and you're just going, all right, am I, is this the best thing for him? And you have to literally, because as a parent you go, hell no, you're not touching my child. But
then we know that he needs it.
But you have to step back. You have to say, and that's the same with asking for help for anything. You take yourself out.
It actually takes a lot of discipline to ask for help, which is interesting.
Take
you have
your
to,
emotions out.
you have to be disciplined enough to like you said, take off the father hat for a second and sort of like look at it.
From an point of view,
yes, and that does take a lot of energy. I imagine a lot of draining energy to try and do that.
We're only 35.
Speak for yourself. But no, I think
it's exhausting.
But
it becomes exhausting.
I know it sounds like but it does become easier because the more you've asked for help, in some respects, the easier it becomes because you actually go, do you know what? Yes.
Yeah.
They're right.
I think that your life became easier now that he's a Loddon, and you see him happy, I guess.
It's become easier. It's become more fulfilled. It's definitely become more fulfilled for Lawrence.
Yeah.
Where I would say, it's become easier. It's enabled us and the family to grow and develop. It's enabled Lolly to grow and develop. What it has done is brought up the looming spectre of transfer to adult services because we have seen how good it can be if Lawrence has the right support.
Yes.
And we have got coming up on the horizon like a freight train, the move to adult services and the move away from Loddon.
Yeah, even though that's 2 years away, 2 years is nothing.
We've been pushing for support on it for at least a year because we know his transition is going to be so challenging. And so it has become easier. We need to take the wins and we need to appreciate that this situation that Lawrence is in and the family is in right now is really great. But we are always conscious of the fact that the next battle is coming.
That started already.
The battle has already started.
It's already ramping.
Barricades are up already.
Lawyers are contacted.
I'm shining my breastplate and my Valkyrie outfit.
But they just appear. We've had a tremendous piece of fun about his trust fund. And it's just all it took was one tick
in the wrong box.
One tick in the wrong box by one person, and we were locked out.
Yeah.
Without any information.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's where my useful skills come in. They're just I'm horrible. I just chase people down. But this is Loddon's amazing because he's in the environment. Like you say, it gives you the ability to go relax and get on with my life. And then suddenly you find that and you go, actually, yes, we're not looking after him 24/7 now. So I've actually got time to go and argue with the FSA and all these sort of people. And you just go, I've got this sort of stuff. And, like I say, we're about to go start court proceedings to go, we need, duty of care when he gets to 18 or whatever.
Everything is signed over. Well, this is it. And these are things that you don't find out about until, nobody preps you unless you happen to speak to people who prep you in advance. And we're lucky because Lawrence is classed as a looked after child. So we have statutory meetings where they discuss these things. If you don't have looked after child meetings or whatever, how do you find out about this stuff if you don't have a social worker? How do you find out about this stuff?
Well, it's like the moment he gets to 18, theoretically he is an adult and he is supposed to make his own decisions. You go, well, that's great, but that means every decision will involve Pringles. Cheesy puffs.
Chocolate frogs that he comes to touch.
It's chocolate buttons.
But
it's like what they don't realise, and there's I think a fight from my side that you have a social worker that knows the child and they comes 18, they disappeared, and someone else come new for 1 year to do all the work, and it's like, but you don't know the child, you don't know how things are, what's been going on, like
the continuity is the key,
like really easy.
And that's what we're about to lose. Read the notes. Read the notes.
But my favourite thing from one of our most recent meetings was obviously Lawrence is coming up, and when we talk about Lawrence and his experience at Loddon and the way that he's progressing, which as working at Loddon, and we know as parents of a Loddon child, it's small increments, but they're massive steps forward for a young person like Lawrence. And I think it was the independent reviewing officer or who was overseeing this said, I just need to ask this question because it seems like Lawrence does really, really well. So when he reaches 19, couldn't he go home with social care support? And we didn't say anything. Every other professional that knows Lawrence's case around the table, Loddon staff, social services all went, no. And it was like, but, you know, this is the read the notes. This is the know the young person,
we
know
that.
the case.
And then what they don't realise, we put all the supportive strategies in place. That's
why it works.
Things go well.
Yes.
The problem is that they don't realise it's not working well on its own. It's a whole system making it work.
Yes, I've had those discussions too. Where it's like it's because we're doing this that it's going well. He hasn't just a switch hasn't just turned and he suddenly, you know.
And this is our concern. You look at the provision post 19 and you go, well, Lawrence theoretically needs somewhere with a lot of outdoor space, somewhere he can run, somewhere like, you know, when anxiety gets too much, he is not in an inner city flat somewhere. He needs to be able to walk into a garden. He needs to go for a walk. He needs to be able to go swimming. He would probably like to do horse riding. He'd like to do the same. Basically, what he needs is Loddon forever. But Loddon forever doesn't exist. And then you look at the provisions.
We need to duplicate Loddon.
But you look at the provisions and they're horrendous. I mean, for
young people like Lawrence.
Let me explain it.
Yeah.
When I say they're horrendous, what I mean is there are so many where they're run for profit. They are, you know, I mean, it's hilarious.
They're not meeting their needs.
No, because they go, well, actually, do you know what? The government amusingly have said, this is why I get boring. The government set like a thing that said, if you make £13 million of profit against like an adult provision home, we think that's excessive. The amount of homes that run at 12 million profit
is unbelievable.
And you think, well, hang on, 12 million
profit
to look after, and you think, well, that's 12 million that should be going for the young adults. And you know, and as we say, Lawrence looks great on paper when he's in an environment that's good for him. If he's in an environment that doesn't meet his needs,
things will go wrong.
Well, they're gonna escalate. He's gonna become violent. He's gonna become withdrawn. We've lost him again. And then suddenly, it's not going to cost 250,000 a year. It's going to cost $500,000 to get him back to even something. And they're just false economies. Yeah. And it seems
you're spending at the end more than because you're doing things wrong.
And this is the amazing thing that we've had with him being in a place like Loddon is that senior staff with oomph and clout who know their stuff are able to say, we know from experience, if you try and put this square peg of a young man into a round hole, you are going to be reaping the whirlwind. Don't do it. Don't do it. And they have been told by the professionals. So in this way, this is an example of professionals working really well with the family, because we can say it until we're blue in the face. But if you've got a child's school that's well respected, people who are experts in their field backing you up, if you've got social workers backing you up, then other people have to listen. So that's why it's really good to build those
really
relationships.
Powerful, because I mean, we've already had one conversation, and the lady from what are they called these days? Whatever they're
transitions,
called. Transitions. Whatever they're called these days. But did turn around and go, but by the way, don't expect to get your first choice if we think there's something better. And it's just that thing where, well, hang on a moment.
Saying that's the wrong people.
Don't start on that footing. Because we've got the support of the school, because they will help point you in the right direction. But do not just go.
And we normally, I think,
but I think it's just horrible to imagine that maybe there's some people that are a little bit don't have as much self-esteem that get hit with that, and then straight away they're just on board with whatever this person's saying, and that's one of the. But that's why I'm saying that's why they shouldn't go in with that. Because there are certain people that are going to be sort of victimised as a result of that.
Well, I was in a meeting that parents were. It's not your choice, because she was the manager. It's not your choice, is it? And there were parents like,
I think you find it is.
Yes, exactly. That's what they need to remind themselves.
I love him, bless him. I looked at that, and he put a face of like, well, we'll see then.
and this is the thing, you know, and I understand
very strong letters.
Yeah, I understand that there are so many different things that come into these decisions, and you know, if you are somebody who works here and this is your criteria and you've got to hit it and all that sort, I get it.
Yeah, no.
But never forget you're working with humans.
Well, as I say,
you're talking about their child,
and you're talking about.
But it's collaborative.
Yeah, it's collaborative. It
should
has to be. It shouldn't be confrontational.
And I mean, also, like I say, I understand from their side. They've been told they have to do this, you know, and somebody come along going, oh, by the way,
but no.
Can you give us £270,000 a year? They do get a bit tetchy when you suddenly go. I mean, it's like you know.
Nobody likes a money conversation.
No, but I mean, but even then, like there's a spreadsheet with high cost coming down the line.
Yeah.
And like we even like they went, is he on it? Oh no, he's not on it yet.
It's like,
put him on it.
Not on it?
Put him on it because you know it's coming. And it's just stuff like that, stuff that just slips through the gaps, which is
why you have to be on it. Which is why it's so
you
difficult.
know, and it is. I think you know, as we say, Loddon is phenomenal, and Lorena being in that thing does actually give us that sort of the weight off the shoulders. To be able to actually go, right, we need to build ourselves up for next.
They will push with you guys to make sure that you're going to the right place.
And that is the perfect example, like him getting all of his medical needs met since he's been at Loddon, like him getting all of that stuff that he's needed since he's been at Loddon. It's an example of how collaboration can work. It's an example of how the right team around the young person who know them, and I would go further than that, I would say care about them and their outcomes, because it isn't just that we care about Lawrence's outcomes. I know the staff at Loddon care about him. They're invested in him. They want him to succeed. They want us to succeed.
They're the ones who pushed for his, you know, for all the autism element. Everyone else had just dismissed us. And dismissed it.
Epilepsy.
Epilepsy.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're the ones who pushed. They're the ones who went, what, do you know, we've got contact with the doctor,
we'll get him in.
And suddenly that train moves. And you see how an integrated system works, and it works well. And and like I say, ultimately, it's always a false economy. If you get support at the right time.
You cannot sum up everything with money, though.
No.
It's like,
No,
I think there needs to be...
Oh, no, it's...
No, they do. I'm saying, like, unfortunately, they do.
Yes.
But what they don't realise is, like, it cannot be when it's about human lives, you know, like it needs to
exactly.
You're treating with human, not with tables and chairs. It cannot be always numbers, like...
No. Well, exactly. I mean,
like there are objects there, like who are you talking about?
I can imagine it. I mean, like, when I explain to people like where Lawrence goes and lives, and you go, and they go, oh, what's it like? And you go, that's amazing. Swimming pools, it's like gardens,
donkeys,
stables. And everyone look at me going, well, hang on, that's ridiculous. Why would he have all that? And you go, well, because that's ultimately what he needs.
That's what he needs.
You know, it's like, yeah, we'd all love to live there. It'd be amazing. but it's that thing of, you know, you can see people adding it up in their head, but you kind of go, well, without that stuff, the cost becomes higher. The regulation, the interventions.
Sure.
And what we have to consider is that young people who need as bespoke a package as Lawrence, you know, we're in this world, so it seems like young people like Lawrence are all around us, but there's such a tight, it's a very small proportion of people with, you know, differing needs that need the level of support that Lawrence does. And you know, some of the provisions, when you said they're horrific, and I was like, no, they're not. There are some brilliant provisions out there for supported living for young people who need the extra help, but, you know, just need that bit of extra help. They're great provisions out there, but there need to be provisions out there for Lawrence's end of the chart. You know, I always say that, you know, in a world of special people, Lawrence is a very special person. He's like in the top 1% of children with additional needs. You know?
I don't think you go to London if you're just a bit iffy.
But it's not. You don't go to a school and need the support from somewhere like Loddon if you are someone who can, you know, manage with small interventions or in a mainstream special school.
We are seeing. I mean, like we're starting to do research now, and actually, that's actually one of the things where professionals could be brilliant, because there is no pack, there is no guidance of what adult provision is. So we are literally sitting typing around the internet and going...
There's something on the local authority's website, but nobody's pointed us towards it from the local authority. You can't Google where is, I'm looking for this, where is that,
Sure. But what we're seeing, though, is we are finding ones where you actually go, this looks like it could meet a lot of Lawrence's needs. So you kind of go, right, let's start reaching out now. And we're sort of like... But yeah, again, that is that thing whereby, as a parent, it sounds horrible, why are we doing it? Because that information is there somewhere. And it should be collated somewhere.
And also, we've spoken to a few recently, and I spoke to a lovely lady. I'm not going to name the organisation she's from because, it was a conversation between the two of us. But what she had said is, you will find that you can only come to us and ask for assessment once you've exhausted everything the local authority want you to look at. And I was like, but the local authority aren't giving us anything to look at ourselves anyway. So, how rushed is this situation going to be? It took us nearly 12 months to fully transition Lawrence to Loddon, And if we're talking about the transitions team coming on board when he's 17 and a half, 18... That's, 18 months until he's got to go to his adult placement. That's not enough time.
No.
Come on, give us the tools. Let us see. Let us go somewhere.
I'm sure that Loddon will give a big push.
Oh yeah, no. I know they will definitely.
They will be fine. We normally have like the big push, and then we put the cars.
Imagine if you're not.
That element isn't a concern for us.
No, it's the other
London
side.
phenomenally supportive.
But I know it's scary now because there's lots of uncertainties, but I think everything will start funneling into the right direction.
Well,
So don't worry now too much.
Don't worry.
It will come along.
I've already got information packs coming from all over the country, and I'm speaking to people. We've got spreadsheets
going. Don't worry. There are like folders and stuff. I mean, like, I'm not saying, but there have been we have packs.
I know you will get ready. You are ready. You are ready.
No, we're not ready. We're definitely not ready.
They're ready to be ready.
I just said born ready, and then I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to have to do this.
Yeah, we're not ready.
Somebody make
we know it's coming, so we're prepping.
Right, so to close the episode, thank you so much for sharing. Don't worry about that. It's been really nice to have you here. Thank you for everything that you shared with us. I know that it's not easy. Just to close in a positive way, can you tell us a short anecdote that shows the uniqueness of Lawrence out there in a positive way? Doesn't need to be long. Something that you would say, that's my child.
Oh my gosh! Well, it's not that it doesn't need to be long. It's like, how many do you want?
Only one.
Just one. I think my favourite thing is that I'll always remember the first time that Lawrence said, "I love you, mummy." Oh. Love you, mummy. And he says it more and more often, but what he does is he doesn't say it, obviously with children, it's like calling the phone thing, isn't it? Love you too. He will sometimes just wander up to me in the kitchen. He will put his arms around me, because he's taller than me, around my waist. He'll rest his head on my shoulder, and he'll either go, mwah, and give me a big kiss, or he'll go, love, mummy, and then he'll go off. And he's doing it because he wants to. He's doing it because just at that point in time, he's thought, I love my mum, I'm going to tell her. And, you can't, everything else that happens, that's the one thing, it's there. That's Lolly.
Yeah, it's very much like that. I always say it's really weird when people go, what have you done on the weekend? And you go, well, I was tickling my son on the bed until he's basically crying with laughter. Because that's basically, a lot of the time, that's what we do. He'll come in, he is special. Like, I mean, if I go, do you want Dad to sit with you while you watch touch? No, Daddy will leave now. In a very forceful way.
With the look.
But then, shut the door. Yeah. But then it's also, he literally will come in and go, come tickle, and like that, and we just go play, and he's got such an infectious laugh, and it is
it does.
It is also that thing, like when you're out and about, his smile and everything is the thing that wins people over.
Yeah, I think people can see, when they look past all the frippery, the flapping, and the why on earth has this handsome young man got a Disney Pixar dragon in his hand?
A couple of dragons and a tiger.
And he makes eye contact with somebody and he smiles. They can't help but smile back because that's Lolly, and they're seeing Lolly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the free chocolate it gets me.
That's lovely, guys. Thank you.
Again, thank you guys for today.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Just remember, our listeners, that we have some meetings here in the Fieldhouse Barn every month. So if any parent, any carer, any professional needs help, please join us whenever you want for a cup of tea and a piece of cake.